Ladies and gentlemen, how do?
Breaking news. The High Court has ordered a robust and independent new investigation into how MI5 gave false evidence to multiple courts, after rejecting two official inquiries provided by the security service as seriously deficient. The two reviews took place after the BBC revealed MI5 had lied to three courts in a case concerning a neo-Nazi state agent who abused women. A panel of 3 senior judges said it would be premature to decide whether to begin contempt of court proceedings against any individuals before the new investigation was complete. They also commended the BBC for bringing these matters to light. The two official inquiries, one of which was commissioned by Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, absolved MI5 and its officers of deliberate wrongdoing. But the judgment concludes that the investigations carried out by MI5 to date suffer from serious procedural deficiencies, and that we cannot rely on their conclusions. The judgment says the new investigation should be carried out under the auspices of the Investigatory Powers Commissioner Sir Brian Levison, who has oversight of MI5's surveillance activities. His office, IPCO, was also provided with false evidence by MI5 in the case. Sir Ryan said, "It is clear that MI5's compliance with its statutory duties fell short in this case."
Welcome back. Let me remind you of our breaking news this hour from the High Court here in London, which has just ordered a robust and independent investigation into how MI5 gave false evidence to multiple courts after rejecting two official inquiries provided by the security services as seriously deficient. Now, the two reviews took place after the BBC revealed MI5 had lied to 3 courts in a case concerning a neo-Nazi state agent who abused women. We can take you straight to the High Court and join our correspondent Catherine Bierehunga, who is there for us. Catherine.
Lucy, good afternoon. The judges just finished delivering their judgment just about 13 minutes ago, and it was read out by the Lady Chief Justice Baroness Sue Carr. As you mentioned there, of course, she's calling for a robust investigation of MI5 and the way it's operated in this case. This has been a long-running case between the BBC and MI5 for over 5 years now. Leading the BBC investigation has been Daniel De Simone, who's our investigations correspondent. And Daniel, you've actually been a witness as part of these proceedings. Just talk us through today's judgment and its significance.
Well, so the judgment today concerns false evidence given by MI5 to 3 different courts. And in February, we revealed the fact that this had happened. We reported that MI5 had lied to the different courts. And following that, the government and MI5 commissioned 2 inquiries into what happened. So there was an internal inquiry within MI5, and then there was what was called an external review commissioned by the Home Secretary and the Director General of MI5 by a former government lawyer. And those inquiries are meant to report to the court behind me, the High Court, and explain what had happened. And MI5's Director General, Sir Ken McCallum, apologised. There were promises that there would be a transparent inquiry, a full explanation to the court. Today, the judges have ruled that those inquiries are deficient and that they have not provided a satisfactory explanation to the court. They basically are fundamentally flawed, according to the panel of judges. They haven't got to the truth. They haven't explained what really happened. They're very critical of MI5. They're critical of the third in command of MI5, the Director General Strategy. They say that in his witness evidence, he effectively misled the court further by withholding key information in his statement. And what that meant is that when they provide an explanation that they said was a full and honest explanation, material that was withheld and the court had to force them to hand over actually kind of contradicted that evidence that was said to be full and transparent. So a very damning ruling for MI5. What the court has ordered is a full and robust investigation. They're saying they want that to be conducted by something called the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office. That's a kind of an independent body that has oversight of MI5's surveillance activities. And they say after that investigation, they will then consider whether to initiate a contempt of court process, which is effectively a criminal process. They've sort of reserved judgment over that decision.
Just talk us through the background to this case and why this decision is so significant today.
So this started with me investigating a neo-Nazi extremist who I also found was an MI5 agent, who was a misogynist who abused women and abused his then girlfriend, who we're calling Beth. That's an alias. And he'd used his position to abuse her and coerce her. He used his MI5 position. When I was first investigating, MI5 called me up and said, please don't investigate him, please don't do a story on him, because he works for us. And I said, well, I already heard he works for you, and I'm also very concerned about his violence and extremism. There then followed a gap where I carried on investigating. Eventually, we challenged MI5 and this man, Agent X, on what had happened. MI5 then took me and the BBC to court to try and stop the story. In doing that, they provided false evidence, because they said when they'd spoken to me, they had always neither confirmed nor denied whether he was an agent. And that was very important because it meant evidence was withheld, particularly from Beth, who's also taken MI5 to court. So it had a big consequence in the case, this false evidence. When we revealed the false evidence, that's what led to the 2 inquiries, which today have been so criticised by the High Court.
What does this mean for MI5 and the scrutiny it's now under? And have we had reaction from the security agency?
So it's particularly problematic for MI5, this, because in the courts they're given enormous deference, their evidence is given enormous weight. When they come along and give evidence, it's meant to be like a gold standard, effectively. And they give evidence in big cases, in cases that really matter in people's lives. We're thinking about cases where there's been a fatal attack, or cases where people's citizenship is stripped, or people's freedom is deprived from them. So it really matters. The honesty and reliability of their evidence really matters. It's often given in secret, so away from the people who are most affected. And what this case shows is that there are real problems with the reliability of its evidence, how it gives evidence, how it deals with the outside world. And the courts have been really critical of them in this case. And I think this is really a crisis for MI5, because it's become a crisis of confidence in whether they're a truthful organisation, really from high up in the organisation.
And what could we see happening after this investigation has been carried out? What other measures could the courts take?
Well, so what other measures the court could take? It's ordered this independent inquiry. Once that's carried out, the court will then consider whether it needs to take any further action itself, including whether it needs to initiate a contempt of court process. We have had a statement from MI5's Director General, Mr Ken McCallum, a short time ago. He's apologising again for the false evidence in this case, saying that there's a programme of works that are going to be carried out now to ensure this never happens again.
And then looking at the woman at the centre of this case, the woman we call Beth, what have proceedings at this court meant for her and her fight to get justice?
Well, she's brought her own legal claim against MI5 in something called the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. She says that MI5 should have been aware of Agent X and the threat he posed, and he was obviously using his position to abuse her. That's her case. So what this has meant over the last month, the rulings in this case, the developments in this case, mean she'll have a much fairer trial of her evidence, because MI5 now accepted it gave false evidence. It's accepted this man was an MI5 agent, and it's having to accept that in her case. It means she's going to have a much fairer trial of her case.
And of course, with this ruling today, the judge is calling for an investigation. Just talk us through what kind of investigation this could be.
Well, at this stage, we don't know. This has only all come out in the last hour. The Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office is being asked to do the investigation. We have approached them for comment. We've yet to hear from them. It will be down to that body and whoever does the investigation how they carry it out. I think one of the big criticisms of the two investigations that MI5 have provided to this court is that they didn't speak to key witnesses. They didn't pursue key kind of issues and discrepancies in the evidence. They didn't speak to me. That was a criticism that was given because I was the other person on the end of this. They never came and spoken to me, and when we put in more evidence, when I put in more evidence, it kind of undermined fundamentally things that MI5 was saying. So I think the new investigation is expected or is wanted to be really full and thorough, to speak to everyone who it needs to speak to go where the evidence takes it, and just to be full and honest.
Of course, this case is important in terms of what it could mean for MI5, but in your reporting, Daniel, you've also said this is about stopping violence against women and girls. Just talk us through that.
Well, in the end, this case fundamentally is about violence against women and girls and the importance that is placed on that by the state. When I was pursuing this man, investigating him, that is why I was pursuing him. I think it's unacceptable that he was using his state position to coerce a woman. He had a long history of abusing women. He's a threat to children. He's a very dangerous, misogynistic, horrible man. And we wanted to out him so that women would be protected. The government has consistently, and the MI5 has consistently sought to protect him. And my evidence is that that's been unacceptable. We wanted to place more importance on women's safety than on his safety, on protecting him. So I think in the end this is about violence against women and girls. That's what it's all about. And the reason MI5's ended up in the trouble it has is because it sought to protect this man. It's long sought to cover for him, and really it's got into this mess because of that. It all started with protecting him, and now we're here at the High Court and they're being criticised for deficient inquiries, and there's a new inquiry being ordered into how they gave false evidence.
It's getting a bit loud here at the moment because of the evening traffic. Just briefly, talk us through the role of the government in this case.
Well, so MI5's, a security service. It's the British Security Service. The minister responsible for the security service is the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and in the Attorney General, who is now Lord Hammer, is the kind of government's top law officer. So he's the claimant in this case on behalf of MI5. So formally it's him against the BBC, but of course at the centre of it is MI5.
Daniel, thank you. That's our investigations correspondent, Daniel Desimone, who's played a key role in this case that we've been hearing here at the High Court. Just to let you know that we do have a live page on the BBC website, and of course you can follow any reaction that's coming in to today's judgment. And of course on the BBC website you can read much more of Daniel's work and also watch some of his documentaries. I'll hand back to you, Lucy.
Catherine, thank you so much. So just to remind you of that breaking news we've had this hour from the High Court. It has ordered a robust and independent investigation into how MI5 gave false evidence to multiple courts. That's after rejecting 2 official inquiries provided by the security services as seriously deficient.
Some serious questions need to be asked as this cover-up goes right the way to the heart of the government. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. Why was she as the Home Secretary along with MI5 the security services providing cover for a dangerous neo-Nazi? What exactly was the information that this unnamed individual possessed that was valuable enough for MI5 to lie to the courts on 3 separate occasions? There is an old Chinese proverb that goes, "A man that makes love on a hill is not on the level." MI5 were having an orgy on that hill. I would like to get your thoughts on this, please. Bung them in the comments below, and if you have not yet subscribed to the 2 Davies channel, which will give you the news and politics from a Scottish perspective, if you have not subscribed to the legend behind the Friday frolic that is Daily Blaze, then get on it. What is wrong with you?